What is up, DTube? So today I want to talk a little bit about a cool thing that kind of happened, and that was HEX actually was marketed on a Premier League football game, a European football game. It was, let's see, what was the teams? It was Aston Villa versus Crystal Palace, and you can see a video on Aston Villa FC, their YouTube channel. If you go there, there's a video which is around 2 minutes long, and in the beginning, you can actually see a HEX advertisement. I think I think around the first minute in or so, maybe around 30 seconds in. And I want to talk a little bit about this, like the power of marketing and like real life marketing, how it's going to be so cool when crypto enters the real world. Because crypto's been here a very, very long time, but we haven't had like advertisement for a crypto in the real world. Like here, this is Premier League, and it's just cool. It's just amazing because we're not used to knowing or think about ways in this way that, yeah, eventually crypto will enter the real world, but we just needed solid products. So yeah, crypto's been here for. So let's talk a little bit about this aspect about real life marketing. So the struggle that we've had in crypto is we usually haven't had a solid complete project or a complete product, or we haven't had an easy thing to kind of onboard to. So we're gonna get these more professional products in crypto, and then it's very important, I would say, that people are more professional and kind of consider. I think we should use do crypto more professional than these first 10 years. It hasn't really been super professional how crypto has been run. But when people get like larger revenue streams, either from HEX or from other cryptos, maybe DTC with DTube, it's gonna eventually make it so people will eventually have the funds to invest in a good camera, and also maybe have the time to try to look at branding, both like maybe if they're doing like some personal brand thing or just in general kind of looking at the general ecosystem about and consider these topics about what is kind of like a good brand. So some things that I've learned being in this cryptocurrency industry, and so I've been a vlogger since early 2018, kind of full time, just experimenting with that, kind of learning to talk into a camera and kind of consider branding and so on. And I learned a lot uh, looking at Richard's videos about hacks, about like concepts such as like what is actually a good brand and marketing, and just consider these kind of topics. And it's really interesting branding wise why Hex is kind of interesting as a product, because, well, what is the interesting thing about Hex? It's a complete project with no expectations. It has locked code, so the code is just running if people are interacting with it, but it's a complete project with no expectations. That is what makes this kind of project in many ways magical. What are other ways that are kind of magical with this kind of project, branding wise? Well, it really do have an amazing logo. Like the logo looks amazing, the color gradient looks kind of cool and exciting, and is kind of true in many ways. I think that a lot of people actually care about how the logo looks like, and Hex is kind of interesting in that regard. What are other cool things about Hex in terms of marketing eventually, when we're gonna, or when we may see it more in real life and so on, or when person themselves may talk about Hex in general? Well, it's a very interesting name, right? Hex. You can add it. You can almost add it to any word, and it kind of looks cool, and it can kind of fit in. You can like put it in front of different words. there is just a lot of branding things that are kind of cool about the name hex and how it has just 3 letters, which actually simplifies a lot of things when it comes to kind of branding, because a lot of names that usually are long, it gets kind of complicated. What's kind of interesting when you see hex in like a Premier League kind of ad there on the side also is you kind of consider the power of video. So for example, in football games, like European football game that this is, one thing that you kind of consider is, okay, so you consider that one of the biggest marketing tool for Hex eventually probably still is going to be video, and people that are basically good at video, like being able to speak in video or be able to do something kind of with video and kind of include Hex in some way kind of with it. Because, yeah, I mean, if you look at most of the other communities in the cryptocurrency industry, most of them don't even have vloggers. They don't have like daily vloggers like Hex has. Hex has people that are like live streaming 1 hour plus daily, and they probably have the most information about Hex than any other project, because there are hours and hours and hours of content. And it's kind of interesting because we usually haven't seen this in the cryptocurrency industry, where you have a token that is being launched at the same time where a lot of video is being used. And it's kind of interesting in many ways, because doing a video doesn't really cost that much for the person that's creating the video. Because, I mean, maybe in the beginnings when you're new to creating videos, you don't really know that much, and then maybe you need a script or something like that. But when you've been doing this for many, many years, you can just click record, and usually you can do quite an informative, interesting video. And that is basically what I'm seeing with a lot of the Hexican influencers, that they don't really need a script, because they're already so informed about what Hex is, and they can explain it to other people. And it's very interesting in crypto, because I think the video is going to be what kind of adds weight to a lot of token projects. That, well, if a lot of people are backing something with video and they're talking about something, it probably is something that is pretty legit. Because a lot of other projects that probably mostly is kind of vaporware, yeah, people do not want to back that. They do not want to back that with their face. They do not want to be on video talking about it, because probably subconsciously or something like that, they kind of know that whatever they are doing probably is not that ethical or real, or it's just it's just a bad idea, or like a bad product, or they're ignorant. Who knows? So it's very interesting about the real world. So the way I kind of look at this in many ways, um, a lot of this crypto stuff at the moment is just a niche of a very, very small niche that hasn't really penetrated at all to the real world. There are many reasons because of that. For example, one of the reasons is because computing power is still super, super, super expensive. I did an ETH gas, or I did some ETH transactions today, and the gas fees when you do the transaction, it was like $1, $1, $1, and I did maybe 3 or 4 transactions in one day, and it adds up to like $4 or $5. So a big reason why it hasn't gone mainstream yet is because computing power still is super expensive, and a lot of these advanced stuff requires you to have maybe a fast computer. For example, I have a €3,000 new MacBook Pro, the 16-inch model, and I have the Galaxy S20 Ultra, and I have the Galaxy S10 Plus, and I have the Galaxy Note 10 Plus. If I didn't have these good computing power devices, I wouldn't be able to do amazing vlogs about crypto and talking about it and being like a vlogger. If And there are also other reasons why it hasn't really gone mainstream yet. So yeah, the main reason here, it's kind of too expensive still to get computing power, to get the latest devices. And then also a big reason why it hasn't gone mainstream is because it's still extremely complex. I appreciate how Hex simplifies crypto, where people are just doing a stake and then they don't have to do anything. So let's say a person does a stake. I'm just gonna drink some coffee. I love coffee. So let's say a person does a stake, and let's say the stake for 1,000 days. So they do one transaction to stake it, and then they don't have to do anything for 1,000 days, and then they can do another transaction at the end of the time, and that's kind of cool. Like, it kind of simplifies stuff. That's basically how crypto should be. Should be one click to do one thing, and then one click 1,000 days later. And that's basically where we're trying to take crypto eventually, where you don't even have to think about it. I think DTC with Avalon blockchain is also trying to kind of push it in that way, with limitless or limitless voting power system, so it can store up for months. So you don't have to think. You just store up power automatically, and then when you want to use it, you can use everything in one click. So you can use all your power for 3 months in one click. This kind of simplifies crypto. And it's kind of cool because we're kind of halfway into the 2020, and soon we're beginning 2021. We're moving into this computing power sort of decade, where we really want to move this. If we really want to make crypto eventually mainstream, it needs to be super easy, like one click, and you don't have to you don't have to think so much. And that's eventually where we're moving stuff. And it's going to be cool because first you're going to get people that have the computing power that they need. So the way I feel with my expensive laptop, my MacBook Pro, 3,000 euros, is I don't feel I need more computing power. It's really a fast computer. My last computer was a 2015, early 2015 MacBook Pro, and it lasted for 5 years. And I think this computer also will last for 5 years. And but I really feel like I can do way more. So you realize about computing power, like the faster computer you have, obviously the more you can do with it. Like you can be a more useful human, more competent human, which is people kind of detect it, right? They detect when they get like a better experience, and and it's very nice. So we're kind of moving into this crypto phase also that I talked a little bit about in the past, about this money printing phase, where we're gonna move from these concepts of scarcity to just print value. That's what HEX is doing. That's what DTC is going to be doing, and we're probably going to see a ton of other projects that are doing that. I mean, we already have DPoS doing that, but I do not recommend DPoS at the moment. It doesn't really seem, yeah, it's not really that good. Like, you should probably ignore DPoS. And yeah, marketing is interesting. Marketing is going to be very interesting in the real world, especially when the cost of marketing goes down, and as we get better projects, like the more adoption we get to various things, like the more humans that are inside of something and paying attention to it and using their intelligence in that industry, the better those projects eventually are going to become. Because so you're going to have this value flow coming in, right? And the more value people have, the more time they can focus on research and development and like studying better information, so they can build better projects, and so they can even also upgrade their lifestyle. And it's just a win-win circle. The more people that eventually get involved in something, and the more people that have information about something, and the more people that have more free time over, then they can basically process more information. Because a lot of this stuff, as I said, is very complex, and that's also one of the reasons why we haven't really seen that much adoption. Because if I want to explain some of these things to a person in the real world, especially with a lot of this this DPoS stuff, when I try to explain it, it takes too long, right? And it's too complex, complex to understand, and they kind of wonder also why their friends are not doing it. And then you also have to explain a lot of things like, oh, this is very new, it's very complex. And when they hear it's very complex, they kind of see, okay, I'm just gonna wait until it gets a little better. It seems like when I see these like ETH gas fees of like $1 or like $2 and sometimes $3 even 2020, 5 years into Ethereum, I kind of also kind of realized in many ways, okay, this is gonna take it's gonna take many years before it actually speeds up a lot. Like we need so much more powerful computer that can do a lot of computing for us, so we don't have to do a lot of stuff that we are kind of doing manually right now. For example, we in theory, when we have more computing power, can basically set up computers that do marketing automatic and but marketing in the real world probably still for a long time will take real humans that look at what would be ideal marketing kind of in the real world. And yeah, it's very cool to see Hex on a Premier League game. I don't think we've seen any other crypto doing that. Probably most of the time, I mean, they've had the money to do it, I think, but most of the time their product is just horrible. And I mean, Hex, since it's a complete project, it's kind of like a solid project or a solid product to market, and the brand is awesome. But yeah, a lot of these other projects or a lot of these other things that people try to market, I mean, their main problem is that the project or product sucks. Either it probably has low margin. That's something that we're seeing a lot. Like people that have no idea if they're in a good industry, they don't even know what is a good industry, and then they try to like market it, and nobody understands it. Yeah, it's like you need some kind of product that can like scale forever, and when you can onboard very easy. And it looks like money printing is a pretty good industry, especially if you can do it with a smart contract and it's already complete and there's no human behind the scenes. It's like locked and audited. Yeah, so it is it's going to be interesting to consider a lot of stuff about marketing. Like I always learn more about marketing because I don't know, it's just like people haven't really explored it that much, and it's one of these subjects that you can explore forever and you will always find more interesting stuff about it, where you can always become better at marketing and kind of consider it. For example, I think it's very exciting with this vlogging phase where we see a lot of people doing vlogs and talking about their perspective about things. I actually believe in many ways that it is the start of this consumer run society in many ways, moving away a little bit from just reporters that are just doing these news article and just writing some nonsense text. I think basically consumers are going to start running things much more, especially when they become bloggers. Because just a couple of years ago, you couldn't do this that easy because cameras kind of sucked. But now cameras are pretty amazing. So it kind of makes sense to kind of do more video. And people also enjoy it. They think it's more engaging content. So yeah, I mean, Hex in the real world, it is cool, man. And I think that if we see more cool projects eventually that are kind of solid in crypto, you may also kind of see them in the real world. What we only see right now that is kind of moving a little bit into the real world, which still kind of sucks, is these like debit card nonsense plus crypto, which usually just still using a middleman. While we don't really have to do it that complicated. I mean, you don't really need plastic cards anymore because if you already if technology is so cheap that everyone has eventually a high-end smartphone, yeah, you don't need a plastic card anymore because everyone already has a phone, and you can just do something digitally. Now you can, yeah, of course, if the internet is down and all of this, you can look at all these things, and yeah, it may happen, but you should be able to have alternatives. I mean, we should actually have real money that you can hold. We should still, of course, have plastic cards, that you can do stuff without the internet, and we should have the option also of using the smartphone to pay for stuff. We should have all of those three options, but the challenge is in the world that, yeah, it's pretty challenge to get everyone to kind of work together and have everything kind of working, because it means that you need a lot of intelligent people running things. And yeah, that may be a challenge. But yeah, Hex in the real world on a Premier League game, that's pretty epic, man. Uh, that's pretty epic. I mean, we're used in a launch phase, and Hex has been now in the real world in a Premier League game on those kind of banners on the side of the football field. Yeah, you should go and watch the video of that. It's pretty cool. Yeah, that is what I wanted to talk a little bit about. I love marketing. It's a very fun topic, and I can't wait to explore it much deeper. Yeah, have a great day, DTube.